the ability to run multiple virtual networks with each having a separate control and data plan. Number of virtual environment can be created through this virtualization concept. So this is one of the drawback of that. The example for this ESXi and Microsoft Hyper-V, it is one of the virtual machine, and Citrix Zen server. These are all different virtual machines. Dear students, welcome to Computer Science classes. I am Ravi Kumar KR, lecturer in Computer Science, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. Students, let us start our discussion with the concept of virtualization. So in this session, let us talk about what is network virtualization and what are virtual machines. Now let us start with network virtualization. So in general, what is a network virtualization? So here one network can be virtualized to have many networks, many logical networks. That is the basic definition of network virtualization. So what is virtualization here? The ability to run multiple virtual networks with each having a separate control and data plan. So this is with the help of network virtualization, it is possible to have a multiple virtual network. So the one network, it can be virtualized, many virtualized networks, that is called multiple virtual networks. And each network will be having separate control and separate data plan. So it coexists together on top of the one physical network, and the one physical network, it can be virtualized into many multiple virtual network environment. It can be managed by individual parties that are potentially confidential to each other. So here each multiple virtual networks, it can be managed independently. Now here it provides a facility to create and provision virtual networks, logical switches, routers, firewall, load balance, there's VPN, virtual private networks, and workload security within the days or even a week's time. So this is the advantage of this. So in network virtualization, it is possible to virtualize a network, one network, and also the different network devices will be used in the network. For example, they are using a lot of switches, routers, firewalls, and all other devices, network devices which are in the network. It includes in network virtualization. So this is the definition of network virtualization. And here, look at the diagram here. See, this is the infrastructure provider, and this is a virtual network provider. He is the provider, operators, and service provider. And this is virtual network user. So in this one, in this example, this is virtual machine, virtual network virtualization, and this is another network virtualization environment. So through this is one network. They are going to virtualize with the help of this virtual network provider. This is the diagram for network virtualization. So look at the one more diagram here. So if you look at the diagram here, this is network virtualization controller, and these are all the machine. These are the end host here, and this is one of the end host, and all these are, and these are all the underlying network, how the network has been constructed here. And these are managed by accessed through API, application program interface, and this is network virtualization controller. So this is how we are going to create network virtualization environment. And here, if you look at another diagram here, so here this is the hardware, and this is the hypervisor, and here these are the different users or environment through network virtualization. So all these are the different network virtualization environment. Now look at the advantages of this. So here it reduces number of physical server devices needed. So generally, if you have any number of devices, so you cannot have more than one devices for different networks. So that can be avoided by having only one network devices. Those things can be virtualized or accessed through virtualized environment and allowed to easily segment the network and permit rapid change or scalability and agile deployment. Implementation is easier. Now it provides security from destruction of physical devices. So this is the another advantage of this, because one physical devices, as we have seen in the previous slide, a physical devices like a router, switches, everything. So through virtualization is going to access through a logical devices. So that way destruction of physical devices can be avoided, and it allows failover mode. Defective disk simply switches to a backup on the fly, and failed component can be repaired while the system continues to run. So one of the any of the devices is doesn't function here, not functioning, that can be serviced, can be repaired. By meantime, the network will be on. It is running continuously. These are the advantages of network virtualization. What are the drawbacks of this? So drawbacks or disadvantages that expose the network to new type of attacks, because it cannot be protected by physical security control like in a traditional networking. So if you what we have seen in the previous session, in our normal traditional network, so they will be having only one physical devices, and all the security will be with only one physical server or in one physical through one physical network. But with the help of virtualization, so here number of virtual environment can be created through this virtualization concept. So this is one of the drawback of that. And here malware can spread more easily among components because they all run on the same virtual machine. So here the concept of virtualization is either a hardware or a software. Okay, or within a network, it will be only one same component will be used by number of or multiple network environments or multiple network virtualization. So because of that, chances of malware can spread easily. These are disadvantages. Next concept is virtual machines. So there are two types. One is full virtualization. The second one is para virtualization. Now, what is full virtualization? So the full virtualization, it provides the utmost flexibility, making running multiple completely isolated virtual environment on a single physical host possible. So what is full virtualization? The definition is the one physical server or one physical host. Through that, it is possible to have multiple environment. And it is a virtualization technique used to provide VME that completely simulate the underlying hardware. So with the help of full virtualization, it is going to simulate the underlying hardware, means the physical network, and it provides flexibility, making running the multiple completely isolated virtual environment on a single physical host possible. So this is about full virtualization. And example for this, ESXi and Microsoft Hyper-V, it is one of the virtual machine, and Citrix Zen server. These are all different virtual machines. And if you look into that here, diagram here, see these are the operating system and this is the application here. These are the operating system and this is the disk and this is NIC memory card, this is the CPU. And this is VM hypervisor. So this is the virtual machine where it's going to provide virtualization, or it is software through which virtualization can be implemented. This is virtual machine and it is full virtualization. And here, what are the drawbacks of this? Applications that require direct access to the underlying computer's hardware won't function properly in virtual machine. This is the drawback of full virtualization. Next definition is para virtualization. So here it is the category of CPU virtualization which uses hypercalls for operations to handle instructions at compile time. So it is another type of virtualization. It is nothing but one of the component like memory that can be used by multiple virtual environment. So here the guest operating system is not completely isolated but is partially isolated by the virtual machines from the virtualization layer and hardware. So if you look at previous type, that is full virtualization, it is completely isolate the physical layer or physical server with the virtual environment. But here in para virtualization, it's going to isolate only partially isolated the virtual machines with the environment. And VMware and Zen are some example for para virtualization. These are the examples for virtual machines. And here the diagram here. So this shared physical hardware that may be a components of CPU, or it is also CPU virtualization, and this hypervisor is a software, and modified guest and modified, these are the guest operating system. So this is a para virtualization where here the operating system or any of the system, the virtual environment is not fully isolated from the virtual machines, only partially isolated from the virtual machines. Now let us see the difference between the para virtualization and full virtualization. The full virtualization is less secure while it is more secure than full virtualization. Next one is it uses binary translation and direct approach as a technique for operations. And here it uses hypercalls. It uses hypercalls for compilation or for different types of operations. And here it is slow and it is faster. Next one is it is more portable and compatible, and it is less portable because it is in para virtualization only partially it is isolated from the virtual machines. And examples are here. Microsoft and parallel systems are examples, and here we have Microsoft Hyper-V and Citrix Zen, etc. These are the differences between the full virtualization and para virtualization. In the next slide, we will see what is Microsoft Hyper-V. It is one of the virtual machine or VMware. So here Hyper-V enables running virtualized computer system on top of physical host. So it is a type of virtual machine. It is going to enable the virtual environment on top of the physical host. And these virtualized systems can be used and managed just as if they were physical computer system. However, they exist in the virtualized and isolated environment. So what is the advantage of this? So this Hyper-V or one of the VMware, it helps the user to work with the virtualization environment. Though they are working with the different virtualization environment, the user, they may not feel that they are working with the different virtual environment, and it is for them, it is just working like with only one physical computer. And Hyper-V and VMware both uses hardware-assisted virtualization and can be centrally managed. So it is possible to manage centrally. And both platforms also support migration running virtual machines between the hosts. It is possible to migrate from one to another systems. And Microsoft calls this feature live migration, while VMware refers to it as a vMotion. And here it calls this as a live migration, and here we are using the word vMotion. See, these are all the different virtual machines. Look at the diagram here. So this is Hyper-V, one of the virtual machine. See, this diagram shows how the Hyper-V system will be configured. Students, so far in this session, we have discussed about network virtualization and virtual machines. Let us continue our discussion in my next class. Thank you very much.